That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and it's good we got a couple open segments because I think he's about to yell at me.
I'm not.
Did you?
I'm not.
You get talked off the ledge?
No, I just don't know if I agree. But I do like some of the rationale. I'm going to have to ask a couple of other head college football coaches.
I think the one guy you asked has a pretty good opinion.
How do you know I asked him?
Because you told me.
Oh.
Literally right before we came on the air, you told me what he said.
Well, no. This was different. Like I just asked specific to this question.
Yeah.
I suppose we better say what we're talking
You
about.
asked me whether it was easier to control.
First of all, you're frustrating me. So you have to set the whole context. Okay. So what set me off was the fact that you're so down on running backs. Stop it. Just let me finish because you're going to rationalize it.
I just said they were average. That's all I said.
Okay. And I'm just telling you that average is plenty good enough.
I didn't say it wasn't good enough, but I said they were average.
So I'm talking yards per game. I'm talking statistics. All this piggybacks. I'm just building my case sequentially, right? Because we're looking at this like we just need Raiola to do this, right? We see it in our what's the deal we're on every day?
The stream?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's, well, if Dylan is this, then it allows us to do this, this, and this. And for the longest, I'm like, okay, is it harder to be get great quarterback play and I always use them as an example, or is it harder to be Iowa? And you're animate. You're like,
I think it's incredibly hard to be Iowa. I think it's incredibly hard to win the way they do at the level and consistency the way they do it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You can't just fast forward to the end and look at their results because they clearly are defying odds.
Well, when you say it's hard to be Iowa, that's what I hear.
So listen. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm saying. Why can't you just play really elite defense and have really good special teams? Is that and my that's my question versus waiting on Superman to get the great skill receivers and the really good offensive guys at quarterback, this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, that's not saying what Iowa does is easy when you look at the final results, because they clearly are better. But I've seen Minnesota do flashes of it. I've seen Wisconsin do it to some degree. Really good special teams, run the football, play good defense. Right? So it's not like now the level that Iowa does it. Like I said, you've already penciled them in for 10 wins.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So my question was, okay, let me just kind of get inside why we can't be better at this. Keep saying, oh, take better care of the ball and turnovers and this, that, and the other. I'm like, how do you run for 177 a game but only have 16 rushing touchdowns? So in my head, I'm thinking, all right, I'm trying to get back to controlling the controllables. So if I set out to be really good defensively and go get elite level specialists, like it's my emphasis, is that easier to do than finding an elite level quarterback? The problem is we don't put the emphasis. So you see so I'm not saying fast forward to the end results of what Iowa does, because it had to start with a mindset. It had to start with, this is how we want to win football games. And I think part of it is people don't want to concede or say out loud, hey, because it's not really like this. It's just what happens. We're willing to concede some offensive talent to win the way that we need to. Oh, you can't get elite level recruiting. You can't run this offense and get, elite level. So I don't think coaches are willing to say this out loud. And for Iowa, they don't even have to, because they're clearly not getting elite level offensive talent, right? And one of their elite level guys just got in trouble for operating while whatever, right? I mean, it's college. So, like, if I want to go build a building, I'm simply asking the question, which building is easier to build?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on. I think it just depends a lot on the coach. Like, obviously it's easier for Kirk Ferentz to coach this way than it is for him to coach an offensively based team, but it was a lot easier for Mike Leach to coach an offensively based team than it was a defensively based team.
Now, I'm thinking, okay, so in my head,
Mhm.
I'm trying to go to these number of plays
Mhm.
and what would benefit Nebraska. So then that got us all the way to, man, we keep waiting on this elite level offense. And I'm like, why don't we just get good on defense first or stay good on defense?
I was like, yeah, they were pretty good last year, and
Okay.
I think they can be.
Can't this team, isn't it? So fundamentally,
Mhm.
it seems easier to build on what the defense did last year. And that's different than it's easier to improve more on offense because the offense had so far to come.
Yeah, if they get to average, they've improved
You're significantly
more.
better.
Yeah.
So, but you get the fact that that's not the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I asked a question. I'm like, hey, man, is it easier to build on offense or defense? I wanted to put it to a poll question, but this is my response. So you can be a tempo team. They have unlimited roster size. In the NFL with 53 players, they die playing that many plays. The RPO rules in college football are ludicrous. You can be 3 yards downfield, and guys can get into you, and it doesn't get called. You can run the quarterback, can't run. Then we're getting into defensive schemes, which I can appreciate, but it doesn't make for good radio. He said the lack of huddling and the tempo for the college clock just limits a lot of defensive changes. He said defensive linemen in the NFL for the most part are unblockable. That's why teams do what they do tempo-wise, and you're seeing it in college too. They just run entirely too many plays. The clock rules have only changed slightly, but you'll be amazed at how much it helps the offense. Like that's his response.
Mm-hmm.
So do I have to is it easier to build my team that way?
So I think it can be. I think it's easier because I don't know. We've seen a lot of the Iowa thing's hard for me because I obviously have an immense amount of respect for what they've done as a program because I just think I look at their schedule and go, hey, that's 10 wins, easy peasy. And I have no idea. And I think Cade McNamara is super average. But
I would love to get to the point where I could get out of bed and I could tell you we're going to win 9 games.
100%.
And I think they can do that.
But I have a hard time because we're using Iowa as the example, and that's fine. I have a hard time separating philosophically from what I've seen.
Is it a bad example because they're so elite?
Yeah, I do. I think they're so far an outlier in those two categories.
What about Minnesota a handful of years ago? You realize PJ Fleck won 10 games twice?
I get that, yeah. I do. One of those years, they haven't been great on offense either year. I get that. But they also haven't had the consistency either because I do think it's hard to be elite at both defense and special teams. I really do. And I think it's harder to.
I don't know why you. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to.
I'm only doing that. I'm only saying that because it doesn't seem like very many teams are. So I'm just playing the numbers.
I think coaches concede because it's not sexy when you recruit personnel.
Maybe
Right? It's not like, hey, it's hard to sell on the road. Hey, we want to be elite on special
I also
teams.
think it's really hard to recruit elite specialists at the kicker and punter spots because
he won 9 games twice, 11 games once.
I think it's
PJ Fleck.
I think it's really hard because those two spots, no matter, you can get the best recruit in the country, and if something happens with them mentally, all of a sudden they're useless to you.
All right, but listen to me though. 5-7, 7-6, 11-2, 3-4 the COVID year, which fudge, they beat Nebraska
with like 20 guys.
9-4, 9-4, 6-7. He's 50-34 at Minnesota.
Yeah, he's done a good job.
Do you look at him as an elite level coach?
Not really.
Well, it apparently wasn't that hard to do.
I think he's pretty good.
Maybe you don't have to jump to Iowa.
We can jump to Minnesota. That's fine. But Minnesota also hasn't had the consistency. There's a couple of 6s and 7s in there.
Okay, what about that isn't consistent?
I mean,
bro, listen to this.
Range from 6 to 11 is a good range.
Listen
That's a pretty
to these
decent
numbers
range.
again. 5-7 is first year.
Mm-hmm.
They got better 7-6.
Sure.
Then 11-2, 3-4 during COVID.
Yeah.
Outlier. 9-4, 9-4 back-to-back years. That's pretty consistent.
And then back to 7-6.
6-7.
They were 6 and 7. Yeah.
Like, Would you rather consistently only win 4 games?
No, Nebraska's been consistent in the bad way.
I don't know, man.
I think part of the problem
we got to parse through this,
I think part of the problem is we're viewing this through a filter of how bad Nebraska's been.
or to the contrary, how good Iowa's been in those two things.
Yeah,
Maybe it's somewhere in the middle.